Unfiltered by Jade.
Jade.
Welcome to the Unfiltered by Jade, where we educate, empower, and entertain. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, download, donate, and make everybody know about this.
Beats by RB Records.
Shopping assistance, your style, your budget. Our services include online and local shopping for individuals and businesses, personal shopping, purchasing of company and office supplies, importing and exporting small packages across Jamaica and worldwide, and helping you find unique gifts and items for all events and occasions. Contact us at 876-919-5195 or shoppingassistance2015@gmail.com. Shopping Assistance, your style, your budget.
Welcome back to the Unfiltered by Jade. We have with us here Shana M. Jenkins, and we are here to speak about her book, The Prettiest Woman. She is an award-winning author and interior designer and the owner of the Prettiest Little Woman Ministries. Hi, Shana.
Jay, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So I'm excited to talk to you about your book, The Prettiest Woman. Before we even get into it, can you just let us know the purpose of the book?
Yes. So the purpose of the book, The Prettiest Woman, is basically it is my stories, my trials and tribulations that basically led me to discover who God created me to be. I documented everything that I was going through, and I tried to focus on the positive aspect of it. My brand, The Prettiest Woman, the book, it talks about the inner beauty. So life is going to throw all kinds of challenges our way, and it is up to us to remain true to who God created us to be and operate in that. So I document my stories and tell you all how I overcame them with the Word of God.
And I love that throughout the book you made the statement, I am an overcomer.
Yes.
It resonates and speaks to, women. That no
Yes.
matter what you're going through, you definitely are an overcomer.
Absolutely.
I want us to touch on the chapter Firm Foundation.
Yes.
That's chapter 1.
Yes. So Firm Foundation basically talks about how I got my roots in the church, in a sense. And it was kind of in an unconventional way. I come from a family of Christians, but not necessarily Christians who grew up in the church and things like that. My great-grandmother went to church. My grandmother went to church, but not so much when it got down to like my mom and things like that. And it wasn't that they weren't believers. They just didn't go for whatever the reason is. And so, but for me, I always wanted to go. I believe that God had a hand on my life. My siblings and I, we went to private school just for, that's the season that my mom, wanted us to be in a better school than what we were. So she put us there. And I just always gravitated to going to church. And so any opportunity I could, I would. And I believe that was when God started just really sowing seeds of the word in me. I didn't really understand what it was then, but as I got older and started navigating life, I started to realize that the word of God really just, one, kept pulling on me, but also made me just pay attention, make sure I stay rooted in church and staying, close to the word of God. And so I'm grateful for that, because you never really know when you're growing up, like what you're going to do with life, but things just started kind of coming out.
Very true. And the church sets a foundation for our lives.
Absolutely.
Right. Some people don't believe it, but it does really set a foundation for our life.
It does.
I want you to speak about A Rock and a Hard Place.
Yes. So The Rock and the Hard Place is actually a really hard chapter for me because as I was writing it, I was still living it. And ironically, I'm still living it now. And so in that chapter, I talk about the having to make the decision to allow my son to live with his father or not. I have 2 children. They are both by the same father, but when me and the dad broke up, he wanted my son and he wanted the daughter to live, with me. It was challenging because I don't come from that. I come from a line of single mothers, which means we raise our children. Right. And when things started getting tough, he wanted to and I couldn't wrap my mind around like not having both of my children with me. I knew I didn't want to be with him. Our relationship had run its course. And so it was a challenge. It was always a fight. It sometimes even now is still a fight, but God really prevails. And I really had to make the decision, like, who was I going to listen to? Was I going to allow my feelings and my emotions to dictate the decision making, or was I going to do what I believe God was telling me to do, which was allow my son to go and live with his father for a couple years. And he did. And to be honest, he's in 8th grade now. He's getting ready to graduate, go to high school. And I can definitely see how living with his dad has made an impact and a change in him. And I didn't want my son to grow up and, have any resentment towards me. Like, I didn't want him to only have my perception of his dad. Like, he needed his own perception. And so, but it's really working out. It's still hard. I still miss my baby. I see him often. He does have a game tonight that I'm going to be traveling to, a basketball game, but that's the rock and a hard place. Do we do what we want to do, what our feelings or emotions tell us to do, or do we really obey God?
I love that you pointed that out in terms of being directed or being led by our feelings and emotions or by God. Because as moms, it's hard for us to know that our children are not with us.
Yes.
The flip side to that is, I think it's also, even though it's hard, I think it's also God saying, do you trust me with this?
Absolutely.
Because there are so many times that dads don't want their kids to live with them and prefer that the kids live with the mom alone. And then the dads don't really have a hand in taking care and growing up the kids. So although this may be hard and challenging and it troubles you because you'd really prefer them with you, we should look at it probably like, okay, so what is God doing in this season for my son? In terms of, other dads don't want this to happen. Other dads are fighting and leaving the kids and not taking care of them and being with them. But he actually wants his son to be with him. So that, even though it's tough and hard, that's something also that might not be such a bad thing.
Be such a bad thing, Jade. You are right. And those were the words that I had to keep telling myself. It may not be a bad thing. Our relationship is different from their relationship. And it really was big, a season of, do I trust God? And even in that, God kept reminding me of Abraham. Abraham had to sacrifice his son, and he didn't really have to sacrifice. Like, God ended up giving him the ram in the bush. And so it worked out. But I had to also put myself in a position of Sarah, so Sarah's watching this man take her baby. I'm like, all she can do is really pray, right? I'm like, okay, God, like, I got to tap into Sarah right now, because know what you're telling me to do. And I don't really want to. Do I completely agree with it? If I could be honest, I don't. But I trust you, Lord.
And that's it. I trust you, Lord. Yeah. Sometimes God puts us in situations and seasons where he actually is seeing if it is that we really do trust him. Because we can always sing, I trust you, Lord. We can always talk about it. But do we really trust him when it comes down to the test that we are supposed to trust him in?
Absolutely. He's going to require you to put your faith into action.
Oh, believe you me. He's going to test that if you really do trust in him.
Yeah. Let me see.
Let's talk about vehicles, part 1.
Yes. So vehicles part 1, as I was going through my transitional season, so just a quick background on how the book came about. Never really aspired to be an author. However, I got into a really dry season where, I guess if looking back, I could say that I was pursuing entrepreneurship probably prematurely. I was doing the things that I knew that God wanted me to do, but probably in the wrong season. And so I started to lose everything. I had interior design clients, but I wasn't holding on to the money. I talked a little bit about, my car being repossessed. And in that season, that was when God was like, listen, like, I've already given you what you need to be great. You have to learn to tap in what's inside of you and stop looking to these external factors. And so when he took my car, like, I guess that was the biggest eye opener of like what the season was. That's why I named it vehicles, because we know a car to be a mode of transportation to get us from one place to the next. And so God started giving me other opportunities that were vehicles. Like, okay, so as he started to bring things back into my life, these books were vehicles that introduced me to people like you, that allowed me to tell my story. When I had started a new job, it was like that was a vehicle to get me into purpose, to help me to fix the old things and drive me into the new. So the vehicles to me were just basically different seasons, different tools, different resources that God was giving me to take me from one position to the next, whatever that looked like. Job, career, relationships, they're vehicles. And so I talked about the different things that were vehicles.
And sometimes the vehicles are not what we want to be in. Those vehicles sometimes, like if you're driving on the road sometime and there are bumps in the vehicle, there are all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things going in that vehicle, right? It's still a vehicle that you're in, transporting it from one place to the other. Whether there are bumps on the road, whether there are potholes, whatever it is, you have to navigate it, you have to move past it. Sometimes you're going to fall in the holes,
Yes.
but the vehicles carrying you through, it's still vehicles. They're
The
still carrying
vehicles.
you through to your destination.
Yeah, absolutely. And even prayer, I've heard it being told, like prayer is the vehicle that gets your request up to God, so you have to really sit down and just look at life and be like, okay, where am I at right now? And what is it that God is using me to get me from one place to the next, or whatever that is, that's the vehicle. And you're right, it's going to be bumps and bruises. It's going to be hard, it's going to be rocky, but you really have to, we get in the car and we trust that it's going to get us from point A to point B. And so whatever that season is, you have to really believe that that is something that God is using to get you to your greater. So you got to
Hmm.
go along for the ride.
I love that metaphor, the vehicles.
Thank you. Thank you.
No more cycles.
Okay, Jay, this is the hard one. Okay. So, no more cycles. This was when I kind of started discreetly talking about the relationship I was in with my kid's dad. It was a very toxic relationship, even in some aspects abusive. And I had to, when I finally made the decision to leave, I had to make the decision of if I was going to do this again or not. A lot of times, God will have us face the same thing over and over until you really understand, like, either you're supposed to be here or it's something that you're not learning. And so in that relationship, I was young and I didn't really know any better. I am a girl's girl. I love love. And what I thought was love turned out not to be that. And
Hmm.
so I had to go through that season so I can understand. So now I know what to look for. Like, so when I get into my relationships or whatever that looks like, I needed to have something to know, like, what's good and what's not. And I had to understand who was God in my life. And so somebody had brought it to my attention. They were like, you're going through these things, you're having all this warfare with this particular person. And it's because you have made this person your God. God is not your God anymore. This person, this man is telling you who you should be, what you should do, what's good and what's not. And you've allowed that person to, take God's position in your life. And so once I got out of that relationship and just really started growing and coming into my own, I had to make the decision, like, was I going to put God on the throne, or was I going to keep allowing men or jobs or career, anything to take his place? And so me writing this book is like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. God is God. I do love love. I do aspire to be in a relationship, but I don't want to have to go through the hard parts of life again. I want to get to a place where I have that exceeding and abundant joy, that true happiness. And it comes from making sure that God is number one, first and foremost in my life before anything and anybody else.
Interesting. And Alex, I just spoke about the cross in terms of on the chain and
Yeah.
what that meant to you and what you had to do in order to get back to making God your God instead of using this person as an idol.
Yes. And so really the chain was another metaphor. So when I met this person, I had a cross on my neck and it was a chain. And you really, I believe sometimes that, God deals with me like in the prophetic. So certain things I'll look at and I'm like, that's what that meant. So obviously, like when we were in the relationship and it didn't seem like he was replacing the cross on my neck with his heart, but he literally, as a gift one day, he gave me a heart, a gold charm, and he took my cross off and put the heart on there, his
Mm-hmm.
charm. Honestly, to just know like how God has always been with me, even when I didn't realize it. It was like in that moment, I kind of thought it was weird, but I hadn't really tapped into like the God side of me yet. So I was just like, okay,
Mm.
like it's probably not a big deal, and just put it off. And so as I was looking back on it, I'm like, your cross was on my neck, and I allowed
Okay.
this person to
Mm-hmm.
remove it and place the heart, which was symbolic for him. I
Yep.
replaced your cross with his heart. So in that time when I was actually going through it, it was just literally a chain and a charm. But like when I'm looking back on it, I'm like, no, like that's really what you did. You
Yes.
made this person the forefront, and he replaced the God in your life.
And that's important for us, even as women, to not allow persons whom we're dating, because we want love, to replace God at any time. And it goes for women and men also, because it can happen to
Absolutely.
either.
And it's so easy to do because, we're so broken. I feel like there are, even in our most healed state, there's still places that there may be a void or something. So we look for whatever we can, to take the place of God. And sometimes it's just a vice. It could be like drinking or smoking or for sex or relationships. And I feel like
Yes.
for me, mine, because I love, because I feel like that's just something that is near and dear to my heart. It can be relationships and it can be men at times, and I just kind of had to make the decision to not be that, to do that anymore.
And I'm gonna say, Shana, nothing is wrong with loving love. Absolutely nothing. But the godly love is where it is. Absolutely
Absolutely.
nothing is wrong with you loving love, and I pray that you get the love that you desire. And
Thank
ain't
you,
nothing wrong
Jesus.
with feeling that and having that and feeling special and feeling all those kind of feels. Nothing is
Yeah.
wrong with it. But
Thank you. Thank
the
you.
the person who is gonna show you that love has to also love Christ first before he loves
First.
you, so he can know how to love you properly.
Absolutely. And that is honestly the biggest lesson I learned. And even just being, I have to make sure that my relationship with God is tight because people will use the word to manipulate me. And
Yes,
honestly,
then.
that is something that I think that once people find out that that's near and dear to me, that's what they go in with. And so I have to really make sure that I can identify the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yes.
People will
Yes.
come at me with a word, and I'm like, well, back in the day, I probably would have fell for it, but I'm not doing that no more. So, now, it's not gonna work.
Oh my God. Shanna, tell us, where is it that we can find you? Where can we find your book? Where can we find your business, the interior designing business? And where can persons, if they're interested, find the Prettiest Woman Ministries?
Thank you. So I am on Instagram under all of my businesses. So for the book, The Prettiest Woman, I am at underscore the prettiest woman 23. So that's how you can keep in touch with me with my book. That's how you can find out about the Distinguished Authors Guild, which is the company that helped me. They kind of nurtured me along the process of being an author, and it actually awarded me the title of award-winning author. The book did win. So you can follow
Lovely.
me on there. I have my interior design page, which is a Stiletto Decor LLC. Stiletto like the shoe decor. I am an interior designer. I'm operating out of the south suburbs of Chicago right now, but I travel depending on where the business is. And then I have my youth mentorship program for young girls ages 7 through 15 called the Prettiest Little Women Ministries. And so that Instagram page is at PLW Ministries INC. And so we actually have an event coming up at the end of this month. If there is a girl that needs information, she just go on there. She can email me at faithfuldesigns13@gmail, and even just find me on Facebook at Shana Jenkins.
Lovely, lovely. I like all the ministries that you're in terms of helping women, helping little girls
Yeah,
navigate the life of womanhood. How to go about it, how to
absolutely.
start in it. I love that you are doing that. And I'm hoping that it will make a great impact on the girls who are in the ministry and even those who are seeking to be in such a ministry as this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jade. I really had to. So, like I said, I have a daughter also. And to be honest, when I found out that I was pregnant with her, that was my encouragement or my motivation to get out of that relationship. I was determined that she was not going to see me living that way. And once I had the strength and the courage to leave, I made it a point to make sure that I helped her and other, little girls in that, just really understand what it means to know who you are first before you go jumping into the relationship. And so with the program, we will get into like self esteem, we'll get into self confidence and all of these self discoveries. But the real purpose behind it is just to encourage girls to find out who God created them to be versus what they look like. As the girls are getting older, they're going to be tainted, obviously, by social media and TikToks and, all of these things, which are fun, but they need to really know who they are and walk in their purpose. And I want to grab them before they get into college or they get into work and before the world starts getting a hand on them and telling them that they can't do something or they can't be something. I want to catch them early and find those gifts and nurture them. And so that's what we'll be doing. We meet once a month, every fourth Saturday. And we'll keep going until we don't have any more girls or until God tells me to do something different.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and your ministries.
Thank you for having me on here, Jade. I've been so excited. I've been looking forward to this interview for so long. I'm like, when you read my book and the feedback that you gave was just so profound. I never really, I think I told you, like, I never asked for feedback. 'Cause I'm like, I didn't really want to know. Like, I want people to be inspired by the book, but if they had any questions, like, I don't know if I was prepared to answer them. And so you challenged me in a way just to step out and look at the different perspectives and understand that even if, you may or may not agree with it, it definitely is thought provoking because it's probably going to help somebody.
I agree
So I
with you.
appreciate you. Thank you so much for that.
No problem, and thank you so much for being open to having those kind of hard discussions.
Thank you. It was time. It is.
I think you did such a great job at it. And your book, I think, is a great book. I think people can learn from it and take the necessary skills, steps, lessons learned, everything from the book, because the book is also a vehicle to get you to where you ought to be. It's also life lessons, and that's what I love about the book. You gave life lessons and from
Absolutely.
your own personal experience. So that for me is top tier. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really do appreciate you and loved having you.
Thank you so much. One more thing I wanted to mention, Jade. So I also, right now, the book is bundled with a journal that I just put out. It's called Butterflies Are Meant to Fly. And then the subtitle, it just says, not to be kept in a jar. So the inspiration behind the journal is I was at a job where I knew that God was calling me to grow, but the management was saying I wasn't ready. And I'm like, I didn't believe that. I knew for sure that it was time for me to fly to whatever that next level was. And, they weren't really honoring that. And so in it was, I talk about like how I launched out into entrepreneurship, and I give 10 journal prompts to encourage people to do the same. Basically really seek God rather than listen to the voices around you telling you that you're not ready to do something, and then prepare your wings to fly. God created us for a purpose. It's not always working at a particular job 9 to 5 unless you really love that job or that job is aligned with your purpose. God gave us so many different talents, and we really need to be in a position where we're tapping into those gifts and those talents and letting them purpose us and position us to where we're supposed to be. So right now, that book, the journal, is bundled with my book, The Prettiest Woman. They're 2 for $30. And, anybody can follow me on any of my social media platforms and get those book bundles right now.
Lovely. You see, out of everything that has happened, something has birthed out of it.
Absolutely. That is the purpose. Yep.
That is good.
It's like turning lemons into lemonade.
Definitely. And as God continue to, touch your hands, I pray that everything that you do touch gold.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And likewise for you, Jay. This is a beautiful platform that you have. And I just appreciate you for opening up the doors for so many people to come in and tell their stories. Like that is great. So I pray that the same blessings fall on you and your family and everything that you touch.
Thank you so much, Shana. I appreciate it so much. And I want to thank you to my listeners on the Unfiltered by Jade. And we'll be back next week, Tuesday. Thank you.